So yeah, my name's Josh Hack from PGG Wrightsonseeds. I'm based at Taree, and I cover sort of from Newcastle, Canamble to Inverell, Glenys, Dorrigo, and down the coast and everywhere in between. So the key is, what we're going to chat about now is Kikuyu management and where we are currently. So I just think, you know, it's really good to see the optimistic at the moment. Like you know, after spending 2 or 3 years of pretty hard conditions and getting around farms, it was you know, a lot of hard work. But like we had a day up at Taree yesterday, and you know, it's good to see all the farmers coming out and you know, starting to have a chat again and really try and get proactive. Just if we could find some more animals would be great. But look, it's great to see all the feed around and what's going on. But you know, I do specialise in the dairy side, and you know, really trying to optimise and take use of the opportunity is where it's key. And you know, the guys that are definitely performing really well. It's really about, you know, how busy you get right now and trying to get things right. Like it's not easy when grass is growing well. Some farmers will ring me and say, "Oh, how good is it? I don't have to feed and I can take it easy." But it's like, no, this is when you've got to be busiest. You know, you need to make sure your rotations are right. You need to make sure that you've got the quality feed going in the animals. You're dealing with heat stress and all these sorts of things, so you can keep things really pumping and take use of the opportunity. Like we're not like Victoria and Tassie and all that sort of stuff where they get 4 seasons a year. You know, you guys know it and you live it and you breathe it. You know, we're getting 15 different seasons a year. We've got so many peaks and troughs of trying to deal with, you know, green flushes and then dry conditions and all those sorts of things. And one thing I definitely do see is those guys that can really make use of those better times, definitely helps them out when it's not so good. So we're going to have a chat about, obviously now, you know, managing the regrowth and setting up for autumn, because like right now and the last, you know, 3 to 4 weeks is really important, getting your management right, so that then you can get a successful autumn plant. And in years like this is when it can get real tricky. Like I've seen guys in years like this where we get some really good growth, really struggle to get a winter or an autumn plant done successfully, and they're re-sowing. So some of the stuff we're going to talk about is really important in being able to set yourself up. So in good seasons, often stocking rates cannot consume the excessive growth. Who's in that boat at the moment? Yeah. Stock numbers are back. Like I deal up in Armidale, they've just got feed going through the roof. But in a dairy system, when we're trying to produce milk, we've really got to keep that high quality feed going in. And what we know from a lot of our summer pastures and even in some of our crops, if we don't try to keep the quality there, they fall off really quick, okay? So to preserve the quality, so we need to preserve the quality of that feed so we can actually get some production out of it. And I'm starting to deal this stuff with lambs and beef up in the tablelands now. Even though they've got feed everywhere, we're really, because, you know, for them it's just about trying to get the weight on as quickly as possible, get it out the door, get some more in, even though they're expensive, and just keep churning it over as quickly as possible. So having crap quality feed, crap feed is just not acceptable for them. So we needed to consume it, or we need to delay the feed somehow, all right? So you guys please add whatever you can to this, because this is just a couple of options. There's probably 15 different options out there you can use, and I'm just going to name a couple, and you guys might even add some others. So heavy mulching after grazing to less than 5 centimetres, so important, okay? If you're starting to build up a thatch, right, you've got to be reducing that thatch so that then you can get an autumn plant in. And also, when you come back to graze that pasture again, there's going to be quality feed there, okay, not rubbish. Setting aside areas for silage. Okay, who can tell me the difference between what I mean here, and it's just terminology, I'm sorry if but it's really important if we can really nail this one, but the difference between banking and locking up a paddock. If we want to bank a paddock or lock up a paddock for silage, what could be the difference in terminology with that? Someone have a crack? Yep.
Flexibility.
Flexibility? Yeah.
Managing your quality.
Managing quality, yeah. Yeah, so typically what we don't want is we've got a farm, all these paddocks, they're all perfectly square, which always happens. And it's growing 150 kilos of dry matter a day. We don't need the whole farm, all right? So we know we can actually cut some silage and conserve some feed. We can deal with some of this stalky stuff, okay, that's going on up here, and all this dead material. So what we're saying is the difference between locking up a paddock and banking is if we're doing a rotation around the farm, okay, and we decide that we don't need this paddock here, okay, and then we're just coming back here, and then we're going to scoot back up to here and keep going around, okay? That's our rotation. We don't need this paddock. I see guys go, right, I'm going to lock this paddock up. All right? So they might even do 2 with grazings or 3 grazings, and then they'll cut that for silage yay high. And I'll tell you why in a minute when we look at the quality, the importance of not doing that. When I say banking, banking is if we're here, okay, in our rotation, we should be recognising, we should be knowing that we need to cut silage, and there's ways to do that. We're not going to talk about today, but there's ways you can do it. You should be sitting there going, right, I'm going to pull this paddock out, even though I'm not going to get there for 2 weeks or a week, whatever it is, week and a half, when it's growing fast. But I know that I'm not going to need that feed, so I'm going to bank it, comes out of the rotation. Okay, you set your rotation back on your 20 days here, whatever it is. Now you can feed more grass. Okay, so we bank that. When it's meant to come around to be grazed, that's when it should be cut for silage. All right, some of the silage contractors, and I don't want to be rude, but some of the silage contractors, it's not such a problem in kike, but definitely in ryegrass, won't come until there's, 20 bales, 50 bales, 100 bales to their acre, because they want to get big, long stuff and get a lot of bales out and not travel very far. At the end of the day, who's paying who? You guys have got to get quality into those animals, and that's what you want to try and do. So try and be cutting your silage, okay, as close to when it's meant to be grazed as possible. Quick one, what's the rules for grazing Kikuyu? What should we aim to achieve? No one? All right, so we want to try and get to 4.5 leaf. All right. We pulled some pasture out yesterday when we were there, and 12 days was 4.5 leaves at the moment. Who's on a 12-day rotation? Beautiful. Not saying that should be your farm. Every farm's different. But the point is it's growing very fast at the moment if you've got nutrition.
And the big thing is whether you're beef or dairy, because I know there is a fair few beef guys here, you can do the calculation quite easily of working out, what you're producing a day to what you need, and being able to come up with that Well, I mean, the thing is, you can come up with a calculation of how much feed you can actually bank, I guess, and put aside to do that. So, with the consistency we seem to be having with the weather, this is perfect kite growing weather. You can't get much better than this. So, over the next 30 days and things like that, you can really start to calculate what you've got.
So you got a growth rate of 100 kilos a day at the moment. Easy. It could be doing 150 in spots. Let's say it's doing 100. If you've got a cow eating 20 kilos of dry matter, all right, how many hectares do we need? It's growing that a day. How many cows to the hectare? 5? Who's running 5 cows to the hectare? It just doesn't happen. Like, that's just what happens. And look, it'll grow like that for 3 weeks, and then it'll slow down, and then it's going to change. But starting to know some of this sort of stuff and how to calculate it, and then if you've got way too much area and you're just trying to go around and feed stuff, and we'll talk about what kike does when you don't graze it in a second. That's why it gets out of control real quick. Righto. So that's banking and paddocks. Adding dry cows, replacement stock, other sort of stock, anything to remove that dry matter. So, guys are putting their milkers on it, and then they might have some dry stock or some other stock they can put them on it for a couple of days, just to really try and get rid of that lower quality feed that you don't want to give to your milkers, and just try and remove some of that. And then that's also less stuff you've got to deal with the thatch and mulching and all those sorts of things. This one is in, I know guys that do this, and I throw it in there because I do know that it's actually what some farmers do. I think we need to explain through it a bit more though, because it's important in terms of quality. So reducing nitrogen rates or skipped applications. So if you don't need the feed, okay, nitrogen, if you talk to Richard Eckert, if anyone hasn't Googled Richard Eckert, how do you spell his name? E. Put that in and then Dairy Australia. There's 3 videos on there, all about nitrogen. Go watch them. You'll learn more of him in 10 minutes than I could try and teach you forever. So nitrogen is a feed source. So if you need feed, you put nitrogen on to grow feed. Right? So Google him, students, homework.
So is fertilised green feed any better quality than unfertilised green feed?
Yes. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. We have some stuff there, but I'll show you why in a minute once we get to it. It's definitely one of the reasons we talk about. This is my next caveat here, is on area, not in rotation. So just because you don't need the feed, not fertilising, if you're better off to have a smaller area and fertilise it and get the quality, especially for the reasons I'll talk about in a minute in terms of heat stress. Okay, because if you're doing that and they can't actually eat the feed because it's too hot, you're better off to try and give them quality feed. Okay, so to manage the quality, that's why we're trying to put that fert on as well. All right. These strategies are also assist to prepare the seed bed. You know, it's a no-brainer, but one of the reasons we want to do all this sort of stuff is so it also helps us in 3 or 4 months' time, 2 months' time when we start sowing. Okay, that we can actually get some success. Milking cows tend to eat around 1,200 kilos of dry matter of Kikuyu. Matt, you would sort of hopefully agree with that. Like, no matter how much Kikuyu you can have, let's say that's the ground, and you've got Kikuyu up here like this, and it doesn't matter if it's that tall or it's that tall, they've done some research to show that really the cows can only access that bit of leaf on top. And if you've got high producing animals, dairy cows, or steers you want to put weight on or anything like that, you don't want them eating any more than that. Okay? So that's why we're saying getting your 4.5 leaf. I'm going to leave that up here because no one guessed it. Hitting to that 4.5 leaf stage is so important because you've spent, let's say this is a 30-day rotation, you've spent 20 days growing stem and stalk and dead material. So the remaining material, like I said, is made up of stem and dead material. When conditions allow Kikuyu to produce 1,200 kilos every 14 days, so that's what we're saying now. At the moment, there's conditions out there. This can happen, which, like I said, has really high stocking rates. Lower quality feed is often produced because we can't deal with it. But it's not the fact that we can't, it's just we need to put things in place to try and deal with it. So this is the same farm where we went yesterday. This is a paddock that he hasn't topped yet. Obviously see all that stem that's grown in there. And this happens, like wet conditions, he hasn't been able to do it, and that's fine. But now he's recognising the problem. And then you go to the next page. He's topped these paddocks, and then you look at the beautiful. Now, I've got no word of a lie, that there would be 11 ME and 20% protein. As good a quality feed as you'll get. One of you might remember from Tocal when they'd done the silage, they used to, the silage awards, from my understanding, one year the Kikuyu won the best silage bale in the quality test. So you can go good quality feed. It's just, you've got to be really on the ball. This is really important, and this is what we'll go to next, is this hotter and humid conditions restrict grazing time and intake. Now, yes, it's been milder this year, but only a week ago we had 28 degrees the other day, or about a week or so ago. And when we've got good moisture around and it's 85% humidity, 9 o'clock in the morning, the cows are looking for shade. So it's restricting the time they can eat. Okay, so milk production can drop by 10 to 25% during heat stress, 40% in extremes. Okay, milk composition is affected, so fat, protein, increased risk of udder infections, stomatic cell counts, sediment in the milk, in-calf rates. So fertility in calf rates is one of the first things to drop, okay, before milk production. Okay, so when we've got low stocking numbers and we're trying to build up numbers, we want to be looking after that part of it as well. So heat stress is a big thing.
Out of the dairy guys here, who has done the Cool Cows course? If you put a hands up. Brad, Matt.
I'd recommend, you know,
We asked the same question yesterday and
no one has done.
didn't get a good response, and it is something, even myself, I'm going to do it because just the stuff that comes out of it I think is pretty handy. So we'll try and get Carly, who is here, she's just in a meeting, but any of the dairy guys or anyone really that wants to chip in, we'll try and get an event here to look at that.
There's a couple of things out of it. Like, I'm not trying to give you a lesson on cool cows and all that sort of stuff. I used to work for Dairy Australia, so I know how important this stuff is, and I used to run these courses. But this is just to give you an indication, and the reason I'm doing it is it's to do with heat, it's to do with quality feed, and it's to do with stress, trying to get animals to eat, and it all relates to each other. Because if they eat less, what happens to our Kikuyu when it's growing better? Gets more out of control, right? And then what they are eating, it's less quality, and then they get more stress because it's high fibre. They're a walking furnace, so they heat themselves up. Okay, so important. This is just a little diagram. It's just basically, all it says basically is cows have a really hard time getting rid of heat, and they build heat up over time. So you get 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, multiple days with heat, they'll build that heat stress up, okay, and it's very hard for them to get it out. The only way they can get it out is really through the breathing, through evaporative cooling. So how many evaporative coolers do we see on the houses around the coast? Not too many, do we? Because we've got high humidity, evaporative doesn't work. Okay, so they don't cool down as well as what they would out west. So humidity is a big player. And then through touching stuff. So, you know, through their hooves, they'll actually, you know, transfer heat, but they'll also take heat up as well from hot surfaces, concrete, all those sorts of things. They'll take heat up as well. So this is the THI. So you can actually subscribe to this. You'll get an alert every day letting you know about your potential humidity index and the effect that it could have on cows. It's free service. It SMSs to you. It's fantastic. And it lets you know what zone you'll be in. So then if you're doing your rotation and you're sitting there going, the next 3 days are going to be pretty hot, it's going to be a THI of 82, which means if I'm on 82, big losses in milk, okay, or big losses in weight production on your beef cattle, I might send them down to that other paddock that's ready in 2 days' time, that's in the trees and all that sort of stuff. They can have a good gutful of feed and they'll be comfortable down there. It's just about managing some of that sort of stuff. So this here's just a scale of your air temperature and your humidity, and the higher your humidity and the higher your temperature, the worse your THI gets. So let's say we have a 30-degree day, okay, and we've got a humidity of 60. You're already at 78, which is 78 over here, and this is the scale of, this is sort of like a yearly scale. You got milk production declines, and you've already gone through the in-calf rates drop. Okay, and that's every day on the coast in a normal season. Yes, this year's been better, but it's important stuff to remember. Okay.